expansion was discussed both at a committee level and at the board, and ultimately the league office was tasked by our board with doing an in-depth analysis.
Imagine a universe where the most powerful executive in professional basketball, a man controlling a multi-billion-dollar empire, gets completely outmaneuvered by a 22-year-old rookie. For months, the rumors circulating through the highest offices of sports broadcasting suggested that a deal was nearly locked in. The NBA was preparing to launch the biggest television event of the decade, a cross-league showdown designed to shatter every viewership record on the books. But when the dust settled, the biggest name in basketball didn't just walk away from the table. She pulled the rug out from under the entire operation. What followed was a high-stakes corporate tailspin, leaving league bosses scrambling and exposing a bitter divide that the basketball world was never supposed to see. To understand how things spiraled out of control so fast, you have to look at the massive crisis brewing inside the NBA's flagship events. For years, the annual All-Star Weekend had been slowly losing its luster. Fans were growing exhausted watching uninspired exhibition games where nobody played defense, and the ratings reflected that exact frustration. Television networks were spending billions on broadcasting rights, yet the flagship showcase was turning into a forgotten footnote on the sports calendar. League executives were desperate for a spark, something genuine that could reignite public interest and get people talking again. They needed an organic, high-stakes moment that transcended traditional sports media, and in early 2024, they thought they found the ultimate silver bullet. The success of the special three-point shootout between Stephen Curry and Sabrina Ionescu provided the exact blueprint the league was looking for. It drew massive viewership, generated endless social media buzz, and gave fans the competitive drama they had been starving for. Naturally, the immediate response from league headquarters was to double down and make the next iteration 10 times bigger. The master plan for the upcoming Bay Area showcase was simple, yet absurdly ambitious. Bring together Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Sabrina Ionescu, and the ultimate crown jewel of modern sports media, Caitlin Clark. It was projected to be the most watched three-point competition in the history of television, capable of outdrawing actual playoff games. But that grand vision rested entirely on one single person saying yes. Behind the scenes, the push to secure Caitlin Clark's commitment became an absolute priority for network executives and league reps alike. Promoters knew that her presence alone brought millions of non-traditional fans to the television screen, driving up ad rates and generating unprecedented online engagement. Rumors began circulating about massive financial incentives, off-the-record marketing guarantees, and promises of unprecedented prime-time coverage. Everything was laid out on a silver platter, designed to make the decision an absolute no-brainer for a young player entering the pro ranks. On paper, it was the chance to cement her legacy on the global stage alongside the greatest shooters in history. But what the corporate boardrooms failed to realize was that Caitlin Clark wasn't interested in playing by their outdated rules. When news quietly leaked that Clark was opting out of the spectacle, the internal reaction was total disbelief. Industry insiders couldn't comprehend why a rookie would pass up the biggest promotional platform imaginable. But for Clark, the reality on the ground was vastly different from the polished narrative being spun in corporate offices. She had just completed a grueling, non-stop physical grind that stretched from her final collegiate championship run straight into an intense WNBA rookie season without a single break. On top of the mental fatigue, she had taken a brutal physical beating on the court every single night, dealing with hard fouls and intense defensive pressure. She wasn't looking to serve as a convenient ratings band-aid for an NBA event that had lost its identity. The fallout from her rejection sent shockwaves through the executive suite, leaving top officials completely blindsided by the sudden turn of events. Reports surfaced that high-level phone calls were made, attempting to renegotiate terms and pressure her team into reconsidering the decision. The narrative had completely flipped overnight, turning what was supposed to be a celebratory moment into an embarrassing public relations nightmare for the men running the show. For years, the NBA had operated under the assumption that any player would jump at the chance to grace their primetime stage. Realizing that the hottest star in sports media simply didn't need their platform was a bitter pill to swallow, exposing a massive gap in their influence over the new generation of athletes. And what happened next would shock everyone following the story, as the tension began leaking out into the open media landscape. Industry commentators and analysts began openly questioning whether league executives had completely mishandled the negotiations from the start. Some argued that treating the rookie phenom like a commercial draw rather than a serious competitor was an insult to her craft. Others speculated that deep internal politics between the men's and women's league organizations played a massive role behind the scenes. The narrative shifted from a simple scheduling decision into a full-blown debate about power, respect, and who truly held the keys to the future of basketball broadcasting. The situation became even more complicated when you look at the complex dynamics within the Wnba itself. Throughout her rookie year, Clark walked a fine line between elevating the entire league's profile and dealing with unprecedented internal friction. While her presence brought sellout crowds, charter flights, and historic TV contracts to the organization, it also sparked visible envy among certain league veterans. Dramatic rivalries played out on national television, featuring targeted hard fouls, heated verbal exchanges, and subtle shade thrown during post-game press conferences. Former legends publicly downplayed her immediate impact, creating an underlying narrative that she hadn't fully earned her place at the top table. This internal jealousy added an entirely new layer of complexity to the NBA's proposal. If Clark stepped onto the NBA's global stage to compete alongside Steph Curry while bypassing traditional WNBA events, the backlash from her own league peers would have been astronomical. She was being pulled in every direction imaginable, used as a savior for men's league ratings on one side, while facing continuous scrutiny and resentment from within her own ecosystem on the other. Navigating that minefield required extreme caution, and taking a step back from the circus was the ultimate power move to regain control of her own story. The decision also brought national attention back to the massive financial absurdities surrounding women's basketball contracts. Under the existing league structure, Clark's base rookie salary sat at roughly $76,000 a year, a figure that seemed completely mind-boggling given the hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue she was actively generating. However, her off-court endorsement portfolio told a completely different story. Backed by monumental deals with corporate giants like Nike, Gatorade, and State Farm, worth tens of millions. She didn't need a corporate appearance fee from an NBA exhibition event to validate her wealth or status. Her economic leverage was entirely independent of traditional league structures, giving her a level of autonomy that almost no young athlete in history had ever possessed. When an athlete reaches that level of independent power, traditional high-pressure executive tactics completely lose their effectiveness. Adam Silver and his team were used to dealing with players who relied heavily on league-controlled marketing platforms to build their personal brands. But Clark came into the professional ranks with an army of dedicated followers already firmly established, breaking broadcast records on networks without needing the NBA's green light. This completely flipped the historic power dynamic on its head. The NBA needed Caitlin Clark far more than Caitlin Clark needed the NBA, and her refusal to participate highlighted that reality on the grandest stage possible. As rumors of the failed negotiations continued to dominate headlines, sports talk shows went into absolute overdrive, dissecting the fallout. Analysts debated whether her absence would completely ruin the hype surrounding the Bay Area All-Star Weekend. Executives at major networks were quietly panicked, knowing they had pitched high-dollar advertising packages built around the expectation of a historic crossover event. Without the headlining battle that everyone was begging to see, the three-point contest risked falling back into the same predictable routine that fans had grown bored with. The entire episode exposed just how fragile corporate broadcast plans can be when they rely on forcing a star into a box she has no interest in fitting into. Inside the Wnba front office, the reaction was equally chaotic, as league organizers scrambled to manage the fallout from the public narrative. On one hand, officials wanted to protect their biggest box office attraction from physical burnout and media fatigue. On the other hand, missing out on a collaborative event that would have put women's basketball in front of 30 million casual viewers felt like a colossal missed opportunity. The situation created an awkward rift between different management factions, with some advocating for total cooperation with the NBA, and others insisting that Wnba stars should keep their talents strictly within their own league boundaries. The drama surrounding Clark's choice also brought renewed focus to emerging rival leagues looking to capitalize on the moment. New off-season ventures like the unrivaled 3-on-3 league were stepping up with massive equity offers and six-figure salary guarantees to entice top-tier female talent. These alternative options gave stars unprecedented flexibility during the traditional winter months, further weakening the NBA's ability to dictate terms to women's players. The landscape of professional basketball was changing faster than the corporate suits in New York could keep up with, and Clark was standing right at the epicenter of the entire revolution. Every time the media tried to frame her decision as a mistake or a missed opportunity, Clark let her performance and commercial numbers do the talking. She continued shattering all-time attendance marks, dragging television ratings for average midweek games past long-standing playoff records. Her influence was so massive that rival teams were routinely forced to move their home games into massive NFL-sized arenas just to satisfy the ticket demand. She wasn't just driving interest in her own team, she was single-handedly floating the financial bottom line for the entire league. That kind of real-world draw made any single exhibition contest look like child's play by comparison. Yet behind the scenes, the pressure applied by network executives never truly stopped, as media companies kept looking for alternative ways to secure her involvement. Proposal after proposal was drafted, suggesting modified formats, restricted broadcast windows, and specialized charity angles designed to make the event more appealing to her camp. But the message coming back from Clark's inner circle remained firm. Her focus was on long-term career durability, professional titles, and genuine growth, not quick viral publicity stunts constructed for executive boardrooms. This steadfast refusal to compromise sent a clear signal to every sports media entity in the country. The era of dictating terms to elite female athletes based on outdated playbooks was officially over. For decades, male-dominated league structures had viewed women's sports as an auxiliary product, something to be featured as a secondary attraction during special showcase weekends. Clark completely dismantled that condescending dynamic by demonstrating that her individual star power could outdraw the very male events trying to claim her spotlight. As the news cycle continued to churn, other top players in the league began taking notice of how the situation was handled. Seeing a rookie stand her ground against the most powerful men in sports entertainment inspired a noticeable shift in how players approached their own business ventures. The focus moved away from simply asking for a seat at the table to building entirely new tables where players retained full control over their image, schedule, and revenue streams. The ripple effect of her decision was felt far beyond the confines of a simple three-point shooting contest. It signaled a permanent shift in athlete empowerment. When you look back at the chaotic timeline of events, the narrative surrounding Adam Silver's apparent frustration makes complete sense from a corporate perspective. He was tasked with delivering a massive, record-breaking broadcast to network partners who were growing impatient with declining engagement numbers. Having the absolute golden key to television ratings right there in his grasp, only to watch it slip away due to misread leverage and exhaustion, was a rare and bitter defeat for the league office. It served as a stark reminder that in the modern digital age, true media dominance cannot be forced through corporate pressure. Meanwhile, critics who claimed Clark was making a commercial mistake were forced to swallow their words, as her brand value continued to skyrocket regardless. Major corporate sponsors rallied around her independent mindset, viewing her willingness to say no to massive organizations as a sign of absolute authenticity and strength. Commercial partners recognized that her real value came from her unwavering commitment to the game itself, rather than acting as a commercial pawn for television networks looking for a quick ratings fix. The entire situation highlighted a dramatic irony that sports media analysts couldn't ignore. For years, pundits had argued that women's basketball needed the endorsement and visibility of the NBA to break into the mainstream consciousness. Yet here was a situation where the NBA was openly pleading for a WNBA rookie to step in and rescue their decaying showcase event. The roles had completely flipped, exposing the reality that raw fan engagement and genuine cultural relevance will always trump legacy corporate branding. As the date for the showcase approached, rumors persisted that last-minute negotiations might still produce a surprise appearance or special recorded segment. But as the official announcements were finalized, the reality settled in across the sports world. The dream matchup that millions of fans were praying to see was officially off the table. The event would proceed with a standard lineup, leaving fans to wonder what could have been if corporate executives had approached the situation with a little more foresight and genuine respect for the athlete's terms. The lingering impact of this standoff will undoubtedly shape how future crossover events are planned and executed for years to come. League officials have been forced to go back to the drawing board, recognizing that securing top-tier talent requires more than just throwing around corporate buzzwords and assuming compliance. Future negotiations will have to address workload management, genuine player equity, and respect for off-season recovery if they ever hope to bring multi-league events to life in a meaningful way. In the end, Caitlin Clark's refusal to jump at the NBA's command demonstrated a level of maturity and strategic foresight that caught the entire sports business off guard. She understood her own value, recognized the long-term play, and refused to let outside corporate pressures compromise her career trajectory. By standing her ground, she proved that she wasn't just a generational talent on the hardwood, but an absolute power broker in the billion-dollar machine of modern sports media. And as the league continues to navigate this new era, one thing has become abundantly clear. The balance of power in professional basketball will never be the same again. The ripple effects of this single standoff continue to send shockwaves through every major boardroom in American sports broadcasting. Network executives who once viewed women's basketball as a secondary programming block are now completely restructuring their primetime schedules to ensure they don't miss out on the next massive viewership surge. The numbers simply don't lie, and every attempt to rationalize or downplay Clark's independent pull has collapsed under the weight of raw statistical reality. When you evaluate the broader picture, the intense media coverage surrounding this decision exposed an uncomfortable truth about how sports media operates at the executive level. For decades, major leagues relied on a top-down approach, controlling player narratives and dictating terms through traditional broadcast monopolies. But the explosive rise of direct-to-consumer social engagement and independent brand building has completely broken that old model. Modern fans follow individual icons with a level of loyalty that legacy organizations simply cannot match on their own. This dynamic explains why the executive reaction behind closed doors was so unusually aggressive and defensive. It wasn't just about losing a single three-point shooting segment on a Sunday night in February. It was about losing control over the narrative of who drives modern sports culture. When a young athlete can say no to the Premier League on earth without suffering a single blow to her popularity or financial standing, the traditional levers of corporate control begin to look completely obsolete. Looking ahead, The tension between major league executives and independent athletic powerhouses is only going to intensify. As more young stars realize the immense economic power they hold outside of traditional team structures, the demand for total autonomy will become the standard across every sport. Caitlin Clark didn't just decline a single contest invitation. She drew a line in the sand that defined an entire era of athlete self-determination. And no matter how loud corporate boardrooms scream or complain behind closed doors, they are ultimately forced to adapt to the reality she created.